Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to talk about a new game, Flanders 1302, a solitaire game that was launched on Tabletop Simulator in March 2024. And this is actually a variant of the book game Braveheart Solitaire by the well-known company Worthington Publishing. In Braveheart, the Scottish War of Independence was recreated. But for this variant I have chosen the Battle of Courtrai in 1302, also known as the Battle of the Golden Spurs, because the Franco-Flemish War was very similar to the Anglo-Scottish War. Rather than the Scots fighting against the English king, Flanders 1302 recreates the battle of the Flemish army against the army of King Philip IV of France. The tactics of the Flemish commoners using pikes against fully armoured French knights was very similar to the ciltrons used by the Scots against the English knights. Both wars were also fought roughly in the same time period, from 1296 until 1314 in the Scottish War of Independence, and from 1297 until 1305 in the Franco-Flemish War. In the book game Braveheart Solitaire you have two battlefields. You have Falkirk, which took place in July 1298, and you also have the Battle of Bannockburn, which took place in June 1314. In Flanders 1302 Solitaire you only have one battlefield, which is the battlefield of Courtrai, also called Kortrijk in Flemish. But then, on the other hand, in Braveheart you could only fight as the Scots, while in Flanders 1302 you can do both sides. This means you can command the Flemish army and you can also command the Royal French Army. In this first playthrough video I'm going to do the Flemish side. For that I have to click on the yellow button and choose the yellow player color. Mind you that the players of Waterloo Solitaire and ELO 1807 Solitaire, which are two solitaire games you can also find on Tabletop Simulator, will also find themselves immediately familiar with Flanders 1302, as it uses the same game mechanics. There are however some small differences which I will point out during this playthrough video. Let's first have a look at the board. We can see that the battlefield is littered with ditches and brooks, which made it difficult for the French cavalry to charge the Flemish lines. The marshy grounds also made the French mounted knights less effective. Going from right to left we can see that there is a small French garrison in Courtrai consisting of two infantry units, which is being besieged by the Flemish army. To keep the French garrison in check, there is a formation consisting of one infantry unit from Ypres, which was a Flemish town. So these were actually armed citizens from the Flemish town of Ypres. And the Flemish army fielded a force of mainly infantry, which was mostly drawn from the city of Bruges. So here on the center right we have one formation consisting of 6 infantry units under William of Jülich, who was a knight, also a bishop. He was actually a grandson of the Count of Flanders, Guy of Dampierre. And the Count of Flanders at that time was imprisoned by the King of France. William of Jülich was assisted by Henry of Lonsen, who is also commanding a formation consisting of 5 infantry units from the city of Bruges on the extreme right flank. On the left side of William of Jülich we have Guy of Namur, who was a younger son of the Count of Flanders, an uncle actually to William of Jülich. And Guy of Namur commands a formation consisting of 6 infantry units, mostly coming from an area, let's say smaller towns and villages around Bruges. On our extreme left we have a formation of 5 infantry units coming from East Flanders, of which the capital was Ghent, and one of the leaders from Ghent was John Borluut. In the front we also have a small formation of 3 units of archers, which are represented by yellow triangular blocks. and in the back we have a reserve of 4 infantry units. The Flemish army consisted primarily of town militia who were well equipped, and there were also Flemish nobility, but there were few mounted knights on the Flemish side because the knights were fighting on foot next to the town militia. The French, by contrast, fielded a royal army with a corps of noble cavalry, including knights and squires, who were supported by infantry, pikemen and crossbowmen. From left to right there is a formation of 5 units of pikemen. Then we have a formation of 4 units of crossbowmen. And we also have a formation of 5 units of infantry. Behind them we have on our left 5 units of a formation of knights under the command of Jacques de Chatillon, who was the French governor of Flanders at that time. Then we have the largest formation of knights under the French army commander Robert II, Count of Artois, consisting of 6 units. And next to him we have 5 units of knights under the command of Raoul de Nesle, who was appointed Constable of France, which is actually a great officer of the crown and an important general in the French army. And like in the Scottish War of Independence, where Scots nobles fought for the English king, there were also Flemish knights fighting for the French king, and these are represented by Godfrey of Brabant, who is commanding another formation of 5 knights here on the upper right. For each of the Flemish player formations we have a number of activation cards where we can choose between various actions, and each turn we can choose 1 action. And the number of activation cards is marked here on top, as you can see here. First we have the activation card of John Borluut, where we have the choice between attacking the French pikemen, attacking the knights of Jacques de Chatillon, or attacking the knights of Robert d'Artois, under the condition that the Chatillon's knights are routed. Another option is to hold your ground, but for that we have to do a morale check. And a morale check is performed by rolling a separate die and apply the results of the Flemish morale check table. Then we have the activation card of Guy of Namur, where we can attack the French pikemen or hold our ground. Once the pikemen are destroyed, he can also attack the knights of Robert d'Artois, the knights of Jacques de Chatillon and the knights of Raoul de Nesle. With the activation card of William of Jülich we can attack the French infantry or hold our ground. Once the French infantry is destroyed we can attack the knights of Raoul de Nesle, Godfrey of Brabant or the knights of Robert d'Artois. The activation card of Henry of Lonsen gives us a choice between attacking the French infantry, attacking the knights of Godfrey of Brabant, and once the formation of Godfrey of Brabant is routed, the knights of Raoul de Nesle. Also here you have the option to hold your ground doing a morale check. Another important activation card is the one from the Flemish Reserve. The Flemish Infantry Reserve starts at the reserve position, which you can see here on the map. And from this position they can reinforce any one Flemish infantry formation, except Ypres, with up to 2 units. The Flemish Reserve can also decide to advance, and this means that all reserve infantry units will move to the reserve advance position on the map. But this action will however take 1 turn. And from this advanced position the Flemish Reserve can attack the French crossbowmen with a +1 die roll modifier advantage. And as we can see on the attack results table, the higher the number, the more likely the French will suffer casualties. So a positive die roll modifier is an advantage for the Flemish formations. From their advanced position, the Flemish reserve can also choose to attack the Knights of Jacques de Chatillon, the Knights of Robert II d'Artois, or the French pikemen. Mind you that the Flemish reserve cannot go back to the reserve position. This is indicated by the red line on the activation card, and also the lack of a choice on the activation card to move back to the reserve position. And this means that once the Flemish infantry reserve has advanced, they can no longer reinforce other Flemish infantry formations. And next we have the Flemish archers. They can target any French formation, being it knights, infantry, pikemen or crossbowmen, except the French garrison, because these are cowering behind the walls of Courtrai. And for that we have to roll with a 7-sided die, which we will be using throughout the game, and apply the results as written on the activation cards on the activation card of the archers. So a roll of 1 to 3 gives no effect. A roll of 4 is a hit if the target was French infantry or pikemen, and a roll of 5 to 7 is a hit regardless. Then finally we have the activation card of the Flemish commander John of Rennes, who was actually a Dutch nobleman but a very experienced warrior in service of the Count of Flanders. He has two special abilities. The first is that he can activate any infantry formation except Ypres that has no available activation cards but still has units on the board. The second special ability is that he can re-roll any one Flemish attack die. Mind you that the commander is not a formation and the commander activation card can be applied once every turn. This is somewhat of a different interpretation of the commander activation card than was the case in Waterloo Solitaire and ELO 1807 Solitaire, but you could also use this interpretation in these two games. Mind that the special ability of the commander to do a reroll for any one Flemish attack does not apply to archers, as archers don't attack the enemy but target the enemy from a distance. Now how can we win? What are the victory conditions? The Flemish win at the end of turn 18 when Robert II d'Artois' knights and all units in 3 of the 4 following formations are routed. And the formations are listed here. So a formation of footmen, which can be infantry, pikemen or crossbowmen, the Knights of Jacques de Chatillon, the Knights of Raoul de Nesle, and the Knights of Godfrey of Brabant. So in order to win, you must always eliminate the formation of Robert d'Artois and 3 other formations. And you have to do this at the end of turn 18, so that means that the Flemish will also have to fight until turn 18 in order to win. The Flemish lose at the instant all the units, including the reinforcements, moving from the Flemish reserve to the front lines. Of 3 of the 4 following formations are eliminated: John Borluut, Guy of Namur, William of Jülich and Henry of Lonsen. So from the moment that this occurs, the player loses immediately. And finally, the Flemish also lose when at the end of turn 18 they did not achieve victory. As we can see on the turn track, we have a total of 18 turns in this battle. And there is also a comprehensive manual in the game with a full explanation of all the rules, but in order not to have to dig through this manual, you can also look at the playthrough videos such as this one. And during the game you can always refer to the manual when being in doubt about the rules or about the application of the rules. On the back of the player aid, the most important rules are listed. A first important rule is that an activation card of a formation cannot be used twice in a row. Mind you that the commander is not a formation, so his activation card can be used each turn once. A formation once destroyed may never be reassembled and reinforcements cannot be added back into it. Another rule is that actions cannot be performed by formations that are destroyed, which is fairly obvious. And then the last important rule is that the die roll modifier is cumulative but can never be higher than +2 for the Flemish and -2 for the French. What is particular for this game is that there is an additional step in the solitaire sequence of play. We now have 7 steps we have to go through each turn, and in the first step the Flemish player can choose which infantry formation will form a schiltron, which is actually a wall of spikes, which is very effective against cavalry charges, but makes the Flemish infantry vulnerable against arrows coming from the French crossbowmen. We can move into or out from schiltron by using schiltron markers. Each infantry formation starts the battle out of schiltron. If we want to charge to schiltron status, and we can do this every turn, we take a schiltron token from the yellow bag and put the schiltron token with the pike symbol facing up on one of the yellow circles. If we again want to go out of schiltron for one or more infantry formations, we merely flip the schiltron marker to its other side. And if we want to move back into schiltron, we place another marker with the pike symbol facing up. And we can do this 3 times per infantry formation. The schiltron is a defensive tactic, and in Flanders this tactic was not really called schiltron, but we used the same term because the defensive tactic used by the Flemish was almost identical to a schiltron. The Flemish also have an offensive tactic, the charge. As you can see here on this panel, a charging infantry formation gains a +1 die roll modifier advantage when charging. However, a Flemish infantry formation can only charge on the condition that the formation is not in schiltron and by spending 2 instead of 1 activation cards. So you have to spend an extra activation card. The Flemish can charge up to 6 times during the whole battle. And each charge is marked with a charge counter, of which obviously there are 6 available. Before we can start the playthrough, we have to select the difficulty level of the opponent bot. So we can choose challenging, as you can see here on the upper right corner. We can also choose the difficulty level veteran or the tough difficulty level. And we can do this by pressing on the number keys on our keyboard 1 to 3. For this playthrough we will select the easiest difficulty level, which is challenging. And now let's start the battle. And the first thing we have to do is to look at the solitaire sequence of play, especially to the first step. There we have to decide if we're going to change schiltron for number of our infantry formations. And for turn number 1 I'm going to put all the informations into schiltron because they start here, all of them out of schiltron. But being in schiltron is the best defense against attacks by enemy formations of knights. And that is the first step. And then the player chooses an activation card and 1 action. And I'm going to start with a classic opener, that is the use of the archers. I'm going to try to push through this direction, so I'm going to target the pikemen. And that's my first activation card and action that I choose. But as per usual, we look at step 3, we have to roll a 1 7-sided die and determine first of all the bot action. So for that we are going to click on the roll button. and we get a 5. And a 5 means infantry. And the French infantry will attack the Flemish formation William of Jülich or Henry of Lonsen with the fewest units at the -1 die roll modifier. And we see that William of Jülich has 6 units, Henry of Lonsen has 5, so the French infantry over here will attack Henry of Lonsen's formation with the -1 die roll modifier, and for that we have to roll again, and this is actually executing step number 4, play the bot action and any player action effect. There is no particular player action effect for this step, and we have a 1, and that's a very good roll for the French opponent, and that's 2 hits Flemish, so we already lose 2 Flemish infantry units. That's a bad start, and that is the end of step number 4. Then we go to step number 5, play the selected card action and any bot action effect. There is no bot action effect, but now we can play our archer's activation card. After that we have to roll on 1 7-sided die. I'm going to do this manually, and I have a 2. And a 2 means no effect, so the archers missed. So this is not a good start. We have to discard our plate activation card. Then step number 6, mark the plate activation card with a disc. What we're going to do here, take the card marker and put it on the activation card we played, because we know it's one of the rules. An activation card of a formation cannot be used twice in a row. So, and then we go to the last step, is to move the turn marker and begin a new turn. And we do this by clicking on the +1, and then we also see that on the turn track the marker, the turn marker, has moved to turn number 2. And now we start turn 2, and so it's the same routine. First checking the Chiltern status, and for this second turn I'm going to I wanted to attack Godfrey of Brabant, but I already lost 2 units, so I think I'm going to use my reserve to add 2 units to Henry of Lonsen, reinforce them, and this is the action that I have chosen. Add up to 2 units to the infantry formation of Henry of Lonsen. But as usual we have to start, well, the bot action takes priority, so first now we have to roll for the bot action, and that is what we are going to do now. And we have a 6, and that means Godfrey of Brabant is activated. Apply the first valid action, and this is to attack Henry of Lonsen, and fortunately Henry of Lonsen is in Chiltern status, so he is prepared for an attack of French knights, and that means that the French will not get a -2 die roll modifier as is indicated there if the Flemish would not be in Chiltern. So the Godfrey of Brabant is now attacking Henry of Lonsen, and he has a 3, and that means 1 hit French and 1 hit Flemish. So another Flemish unit we lose, and there we have the first French unit of knights. And now it's our turn. We can now play our activation card, our action that we chose, and that was to reinforce with 2 units from the reserve the formation of Henry of Lonsen. Then we discard the activation card, we mark the formation that we just played, and go to the next turn. Always the same routine, very easy game. But I will once in a while check the solitaire sequence of play, because especially the first step, something that is easily forgotten. Now we are in the first step, and I'm going to go out of children, and for that I flip the children token, and that means that Henry of Lonsen is now out of children. And now I'm going to choose the activation card and one action, and the action that I choose is with Henry of Lonsen to not only attack Godfrey of Brabant's knights, but to charge them. And for that I have to play an additional activation card, as is stated here, cannot be in children and must expend an extra activation card, and then we get a +1 die roll modifier. And there is our war cry, Flanders the Lion. That is the action that I have chosen, but first we have to roll for the opponent, and we get a 2. A 2 is Jacques de Satillon. He is now attacking, the first valid action is to attack John Borluut, and John Borluut is also in children formation, so no -2 die roll modifier for Jacques de Satillon. Actually, Jacques de Satillon is attacking John Borluut formation, and for that we have to roll, and we get 6, and that's not a good roll for the French. That is 1 hit French, so Jacques de Satillon loses 1 knight unit. And now it's our turn. We're going to attack with Henry of Lonsen to charge actually the formation of Godfrey of Brabant. And again I'm going to roll manually. And what do we get? We get a 5 +1 because of the charge, and that makes a 6, and that's 1 hit French without any Flemish casualties. So for the second turn, not too bad. We're going to discard this counter, and also the activation cards. I'm ready in turn number 3, by the way, not turn number 2. I'm going to mark Henry of Lonsen, that was the one that was activated, and then go to turn number 4. And let's see what we can do. First of all, changing children, we are going to go back now into children for Henry of Lonsen, because he can also not be activated. Information cannot be activated twice in a row. There's also marked here, so we put him back into children. The best defense against attacks of knights, but of course they are vulnerable to French crossbowmen. What can I do here? I think I'm going to go out of children for the formation of John Borluut, flipping the token, and then I'm going to do the same as Henry of Lonsen. I'm going to charge the formation of Jacques de Satillon. The second choice actually. Okay, let's first roll now for the opponent, and that's a 1, and that's the formation of the French commander Robert II d'Artois, and he will do the first valid action, attack Guy of Namur. Guy of Namur is fortunately in children formation, so no die roll modifier to be applied, and he has a 4, and that's a 1 hit French, 1 hit Flemish, so 1 infantry unit and 1 unit of knights. And now we're going to charge onto the formation of Jacques de Satillon with the formation of John Borluut. That's a roll of 6, and that's a very good roll. 6 + 1 is 7, and that's 2 hits French, so turn number 4. Quite good attack for the Flemish formation. Again, we have to discard the counter and also the activation cards and go to the next turn. And also we have to mark, not to forget, the formation that we played, and it was John Borluut. Now again checking children's status, and I'm going to put John Borluut back into children. And I think, because we see here at the victory conditions, we have to fight until the end of turn 18. So the Flemish cannot win during the battle. They have to really fight until the end. But they have to take out Robert d'Artois, and then also 1 footman formation, or 3 knight formations, or 2 knight formations and 1 footman formation. I'm going to use my bowmen, my archers again. And yeah, we are here with his pikemen. I'm going to fire at the pikemen with my archers. That is the choice that I have made. Now I'm going to roll for the opponent, because the opponent is always first. Then we have a 6. Godfrey of Brabant again. Attack the first valid, apply the first valid action. Attack Henry of Lonsen. Henry of Lonsen is in children, so no die roll modifier. And there we go with the attack of Godfrey of Brabant. And he rolls a 6, and that's again 1 hit French. So that's another unit of knights lost to the French without Flemish casualties, so that's good. And now we're going to fire at the French pikemen. And again, going to do a manual roll. Ooh, a bit strange, but we have a 5, and I think that's good. That's a 1 hit. So 1 pikeman is out, and now we can discard, and we have to also mark, and we we are ready to turn number 6, and now we have to see again the children formation, the children status. All of them are in children. I think I'm going to attack the pikemen with the formation of Key of Namur. That's what I have chosen. Now opponent, that's a 2. That's Jacques de Chatillon, attacking John of Borluut again. No die roll modifier. John of Borluut is in children. So there we go. And we get a 1, and that's a very good attack of the French knights. That means 2 hits. Or it didn't matter that John Borluut was in children. We have 2 hits, so 2 Flemish units, infantry units lost. Now we are going to attack the pikemen with the formation of Guy of Namur. I'm going to again roll manually, and almost got a 7. I have a 3, and I'm going to stick with it. 1 hit French, 1 hit Flemish. So Flemish unit. Another pikeman, and that's the end of turn 6, and we go to turn 7. We also have to mark the formation that we played. Again, I think I'm going to fire with my archers at the pikemen. I'll roll for the opponent, and first normally have to check the children, but I'm not changing children. So the opponent has a 3, That's Raoul de Nesle for the first time. And he will do the first valid action, attack William of Jülich. So Raoul de Nesle over here still has 5 knights units and going to attack William of Jülich. For that we have to do another roll, and they are in Chiltern, so there is no die roll modifier. Oh, and again a 1, and that's 2 hits Flemish, so another heavy blow for the Flemish army. The formation of William of Jülich loses 2 infantry units. And now we're going to fire with the archers on the pikemen. And let's see what happens. And that's a 1, and it's not a good roll. No effect. No effect. And mind you, we cannot use the commander to do a reroll. We can only use the commander to do a reroll on a Flemish attack. And the archers are not attacking, they are targeting. So it's not valid for archers. Okay, turn number 8. Maybe we have to be a bit more aggressive. Chiltern status, I'm going to go again out of Chiltern and going to do a charge on Godfrey of Brabant. And now first roll for the opponent, and that's a 2, and a 2 means Jacques de Chatillon. Here he will attack John Bolut again. John Bolut still in Chiltern formation, so no die roll modifier for the French. And he has a 2, and that's quite a good roll. That's 1 hit Flemish, no French casualties. And now we're going to charge at Godfrey of Brabant, and we have a 6, another good roll, plus 1 is a 7, 2 hits French, and that means that we are destroyed, completely destroyed or routed 1 knight formation, the formation of Godfrey of Brabant. So now we're getting somewhere, but we are not at the end. Still have some work to do. And now we also see that we don't have any activation cards anymore for Henry of Lonsen, but he still has units on the board, 4 units, so he can still be activated using the commander card. But not now, because we have to, he was used the previous time, so previous turn, so we cannot activate activate him this turn. Again, Chiltern status, I'm going to put Henry of Lonsen back into Chiltern, and this is the last time I can do this, because every formation has only 3 times, except the reserve, they cannot be put into Chiltern. Yeah, John Bolut. Now could also advance. Now I'm going to advance with the reserve to the advanced position. That takes 1 turn, but first I have to roll for the opponent. And that's a 3, and a 3 is Raoul de Nesle again, attack William of Jülich. William of Jülich still in Chiltern. And that's a 3, that's a 1 hit French, 1 hit Flemish, so 1 loss and another French loss. And now we can go to the advanced position. That means all of our remaining reserve units are moving to the advanced position, and now they cannot reinforce anymore. It's one of the disadvantages. I'm going to mark And step number 10. Okay, I'm going to use the archers. This is the last activation card to target the pikemen again. Should I? Yeah, no, I'm going to target the pikemen. First roll for the opponent, and that's a 3. Let's roll the Nesle again, apply the first valid action, attack William of Jülich, relentlessly attacking William of Jülich, but fortunately he's still in Chiltern. And that's a 3. And that's again 1 hit French, 1 hit Flemish. It's another Flemish loss. It's a French loss. And now we're going to fire at the pikeman. Click on the roll button. And we have a 6. That's a good roll. That means 1 hit. So another pikeman is down, destroyed, out of action. And we have to mark the archers. They cannot be activated anymore. Also not by the commander. Because the commander can only activate infantry formations, and archers are not infantry. Again, Chiltern formation. We keep them in Chiltern, and with the reserve we are going to attack Jacques de Chatillon, and I'm even going to charge to use 2 activation cards for that, but they were not in Chiltern, so cannot be in Chiltern, so no problem there. And first roll for the opponent, and that's a 7. That's the first time we have this. These are the crossbowmen, and that means remove 1 Flemish archer. That's the first thing we have to do. And then we have to roll to see what happens. Because they are firing, we have a 3. The 3 is William of Jülich, and not in Chiltern is 1 hit. In Chiltern is 2 hits, and that is what I meant being more vulnerable to crossbowman fire. So we have 2 hits, William of Jülich, and that means that the formation of William of Jülich has been destroyed. That's the first one, and we can not have 3 of our formations destroyed, otherwise we lose instantly. And now we're going to attack Jacques de Chatillon with our reserve to roll, and we have a 4 plus 1. It's not a super roll. Should I do another? It's tricky. I'm going to take the risk. I'm going to re-roll. And what do we have? Could be worse. Could be better. Oh, we have a 6. That's good. Plus 1. And that's a 7. And that's 2 hits French. And with that we have taken out or completely routed the formation of Jacques de Chatillon. And we have to discard all the activation cards, and we only have to mark the reserve because the commander can be used again for the next turn, but he cannot activate, of course, the formation that was used previous turn. If they would not have had any activation cards anymore. Again, Chiltern formation. He could activate Henry of Lonson, but cannot charge with him. They can attack the French pikemen. Pikemen are a bit in our way. I'm going to attack the French pikemen with John Bolut. This is my choice. First roll for the opponent. And we have a 4. And that means one hit French, one hit, no, I'm sorry. The opponent, that means pikeman. Apply the first valid action, attack the reserve if advanced, and the reserve has advanced. So they will attack the reserve. For that we have to roll. And that's a 5, and that's one hit French, one hit Flemish. I don't think there was a die roll modifier. No, so one pikeman and one of the reserve. And now we're going to attack the pikeman with John of Beaulieu. For that I'm going to do a roll. And we have a 2. No, I'm going to re-roll. Use the special ability of my commander. Hopefully it's better. And that's a 6, and it is better. One hit French, so there goes the pikeman unit, last one. Now we're getting closer to our objective in order to win the battle. And we have to mark John Beaulieu. Okay, now we have already destroyed the pikeman. We have destroyed already 2 knight formations. So we're doing good. We only have to take out Robert d'Artois, route this formation over here, and make sure we don't lose 3 Flemish formations at the end of turn 18. So now I'm going to attack with the reserve. I'm going to attack Robert d'Artois, and I still have 2 activation cards, so I'm going to do a charge, not, and first roll for the opponent. Always check children formation, but if I don't change anything, that means stay like it is. And we first have a roll of 5, and that's the infantry. Attack the Flemish formation with the fewest units at -1 DRM. Now William of Jülich is already destroyed, so the French infantry will attack Henry of Lonsen with the -1 DRM. And that's a 4, -1 is a 3, 1 hit French, 1 hit Flemish. And there you go. That's the Flemish casualty. Okay, now we're going to charge at the formation of Knights of Robert d'Artois. And that's a 1, and that's a very bad roll. Again, I'm going to use my commander to have a re-roll. And maybe the same. It's again a 1. Oh. 1 + 1 is 2. Now we cannot re-roll anymore. It's a 1 hit Flemish. And that's our last unit. And we were very unfortunate during this attack. No enemy casualties. And we go to the next turn, and the formation we used was the reserve. We need to take out, we could go out of children. Yeah, why not go out of children with Guy of Namur? The rest stays in children. Going to charge Robert d'Artois, my last one. And Guy of Namur can do it because the French pikemen are destroyed. Okay, but first a roll for the opponent. And that's a 5, and that's again the infantry. With the -1 DRM, they again will attack Henry of Lonsen. And ooh, a 1 minus 1 is 0. That's 2 hits Flemish. Oh, that is a beating. Only 1 unit left. 1 Flemish unit left over here. Already lost 1. Only 2 units over here, so not a good situation. But now we're going to charge at Robert d'Artois with the formation of Guy of Namur. And with ooh, a 1. That's unbelievable. Last time I can use my commander to reroll. And now, oh, it's better now. 6 plus 1 is a 7. And that's 2 hits French. Maybe too little too late, I don't know. But at least we got 2 casualties now. And we're going to discard all the activation cards. We activated the Guy of Namur. Go to turn number 15. Don't have a lot of options anymore. We still have John Borluth, and he can also attack Robert d'Artois because the Knights of Jacques de Chatillon are routed, and that is the only choice I have, because the 5 activation cards of William of Jülich I can no longer use because I have no units. So, and I have to play an activation card as long as there is a valid one. So first I'm going to roll for the, I have to check this one here. I'm going to put them back into children. That is something which is easily forgotten at the first step. In the meantime, I have rolled a 3. A 3, that's Raoul de Nesle. Attack William of Jülich. William of Jülich is destroyed, so attack Guy of Namur. Guy of Namur, fortunately, put them back into children. The neck of time. And he's going to attack Guy of Namur. And that's with 6. And that's 1 hit French. So that is 1 unit lost. And now we're going to attack with John Borluth. And we have a 5. And that's 1 hit French, 1 hit Flemish. Another loss, and there another loss. 2 units remaining for the French formation of the French commander. Okay, and now we have no choice than to attack with Guy of Namur. First check for children. Everybody stays in children. Okay, we are going to attack Robert d'Artois again. But first roll for the opponent. And we get a 3. Oh, sorry. That's Raoul de Nesle again. Attack William of Jülich cannot do anymore. Attack Guy of Namur again. There we go. And he has a 5. 1 hit French, 1 hit Flemish. Nope. It's 1 hit, and now 1 of Guy Namur. He still has 3 units. You can see here 1 unit, 1 unit. Okay, and he's going to attack now Robert d'Artois. And there we go. And that's a 5. 1 hit French, 1 hit Flemish. Another Flemish unit. And another French knight unit. And to discard Guy of Namur, go to turn number 17. And now we have to check children. First step. Don't forget that, it's very important. But we have no options. We have only William of Jülich, have no men, and Guy of Namur was played before, so we have no valid activation card we can place, so we have to skip our turn, but that does not mean that the enemy won't do anything, so we still have to roll for the opponent. And that's a 5. 5 is infantry, attack Flemish formation, and they will attack William of Julie or Henry of Lonsen. Henry of Lonsen is still there, so they will attack Henry of Lonsen with a -1 DRM. And that's 2 minus 1 is 1. 2 hits Flemish, that means Henry of Lonsen's formation is destroyed. Now if we lose one more formation, one of the frontline formations, one more, then it's game over. As we can see here on the lose conditions. So now we have to mark, remove the marker, go to turn number 18, last turn, last chance for Guy of Namur to take out Robert d'Artois. But first roll for the opponent. And that's a 1, and that is Robert d'Artois. He's going to attack Guy of Namur. We are in Chiltern, so no die roll modifier. And there it goes. And that was a strange roll, but it was a 6. And that's 1 hit French, and he loses his last unit. And I was going to attack Robert d'Artois, but I have no target anymore, so that action has become invalid. And that's the end of turn 18, and in the nick of time we won this battle. And at the end of turn 18 we took out Robert d'Artois' formation, and we also took out pikeman formation and 2 knight formations. So this was game 1. I could not demonstrate the hold your ground. This is normally one of the actions that you use when you really already achieved your objective, but you are not yet at the end of the battle at turn 18. But it has some risks because of this command. Infantry can become scared because of the desperate situation and could flee. So maybe on the next playthrough it will be possible to demonstrate it. In each case, I think it was an interesting game. I hope I did not make any mistakes. If I did, you can always leave a comment. Next time I will be playing as the French, because as you know, in this game you can play both sides. Or you can also try it yourself, because the game is already available on Tabletop Simulator. For now, thank you for watching, and see you on the next one. Bye bye.